Good morning, guys. John Tarks here with Midline and Minden. It's Friday morning, April 20th, coming to you here from our pickup as we're starting to get out in the country, and spring maybe officially is threatening to be upon us. We're getting some things done here this morning to hopefully get closer and closer to getting planters rolling. And that's kind of the source of our topic here today. We wanted to come to you and talk to you about is when to make that decision to finally go. There's some lessons from last year that I think can maybe kind of help us plan ahead and to kind of make that correct decision on when to officially point the date. Obviously, we're a week, in some cases 10 days behind where some of our most aggressive customers get going with things. And so we learned some lessons a year ago that we think can help us in making a proper decision that's going to, put us in the best scenario to impact yield positively this year. So, I think the first thing to really keep in mind is this. For some of you, we're not behind at all. For some of you, we are no worse than probably 20% behind where we would be. And I think with that kind of mindset going into it, if you feel like we've negatively impacted yield on 20% of your acres, let's not make rash decisions this weekend, or maybe going too soon, or going on the wrong farm that might impact the next 20% of your acres. We're obviously in an economic cycle that we really can't afford to make rash decisions or poor judgments just because we're in a hurry to get out there because the calendar says that we're supposed to. So I think it's really important that we're making smart decisions to keep us from further negatively impacting yield. Some of our lessons, and you'll see kind of coming up here on the screen right now, this is our emergence study that we've kind of bragged about and talked about a lot from our test plot from April 11th from last year. And we've talked to you guys about this in previous years, but maybe one tip, one lesson from last year to keep in mind as we're going. And though the weather forecast looks very good here for the next week, 10 days, if we do get that cold rain, we had a lot of debate about the impact on yield that might have a year ago. And I think as you begin to look down through this chart, you can kind of see in red there, guys, on the graph there, you see that on the 25th we had that cold rain event. And I think you can begin to see, looking at the effect on soil temperature, it was a good 2 days. I mean, we were getting some feedback from different agronomy sources that maybe parking the planters for 48 hours prior to that cold rain was the way to go. I think you can look at some of the soil temperature information there, guys, and maybe make the argument that 48 to 72 hours might have been an appropriate window to close down. So that's just something to keep in mind. While we're not totally broke free from a cold, wet pattern, if that rain does come back in the forecast, let's learn a little something from last year. Let's take a look at this information that we provided you and do make that decision to park the planter. I know the last field that Dad and I planted was a field of 6489, which was 114-day corn. It was on one of our Keg Creek bottoms, one of our really honey hole farms, and it was 190 bushel corn. We were disappointed with that. And it was a farm we planted on the day of that cold rain. We kind of ignored maybe some of the agronomic expertise in the country on that and went ahead and planted anyway, and we felt like we kind of got taught a little bit of a lesson on that. And maybe that's an experience that hopefully can save all of us some mistakes going forward. So that's, I think, key number one. For anybody that does feel like we're maybe a little bit later than desired getting started with planting and is wondering about long season maturity corn, I would tell you one of our greatest couple lessons as far as positively impacting yield a year ago was, and last year was different than this year will be, and we all know that, but anything planted that first week of May last year really proved to be home run kind of stuff, and that's still in front of us as far as this year goes. Longer maturity corn, just with the way the weather patterns and the rainfall came last year, also proved to be where the money was at. And those are all still things that are very much on the table. As the season progresses, as planting date gets pushed down the road a little bit, it actually takes a little bit fewer GDUs to reach maturity for the plant. And we haven't really accumulated a whole lot of GDUs to date. So it's not like from a GDU accumulation standpoint, we're missing out on something. Just because it's not in the ground isn't negatively impacting us in that manner so far. So those are things to keep in mind. I would still, especially a product like 6434, 6435 as far as a Smart Stack and a Double Pro, 114-day products that you still very much are going to want in the ground. I mean, we're talking about the best hybrid in the industry in Southwest Iowa right now. So let's not be making decisions to skip that out just because we're a week, 10 days behind where we would traditionally like to be starting with planting dates. So let's begin to graduate to the decision of when am I going to go? What farm am I going to start at? What lessons from last year can I apply to this year to help me with that again? And it's not just a matter of taking your soil probe, shoving it in the ground, and finding the farm that says, yep, 50-some degrees, it's time to go. It's been wet enough in a lot of places that we need to give some consideration to warmest and driest, and what's the best combination of that. And I can't encourage you enough. First off, let's be thinking of your work ground, maybe something that's up in the hills, a high flat. Those are going to be areas that I would totally encourage you to target to get going with this stuff on. Anything tilled, probably before no-till. But if you're like Dad and I and you get into a really heavy no-till situation, let's look at that bean stubble first. And then let's work on corn later in our planting schedule. And if you have no-till corn on corn, let's really be patient with that. I would tell you, let's wait another week or so before we even want to think about getting crazy about that. Let things warm up, let things dry out. We don't want to do things that negatively impact yield just because we're in a hurry this year. So keep that in mind. The other part that I would tell you from maybe it's a little bit later than you traditionally like to start planting, and not to be nervous standpoint, you're planting DeKalb, guys. You're planting the best dry down product in the industry. And when it comes to harvest, you're not going to get negatively impacted for planting a full season DeKalb hybrid or planting DeKalb in general. The dry down advantage you like, the things that are, or make DeKalb a very successful part of your operation, are still going to help you, even though we're getting just a little bit later start to planting. One more consideration I think that a lot of guys maybe overlook a little bit is that on soybeans, if you treat those, and we have a very high percentage of our soybean business done with Acceleron fungicide and insecticide seed treatment. The one thing you need to remember about that, if you want to get going on something early and you want to get some beans in the ground, we do have a 100% replant policy. If you are really nervous or want to get going on some stuff, if you want to be aggressive with planting, I might encourage you to look at the beans and feel very assured with that replant policy. If you shove something in here before the 1st of May and have an emergence issue, we still have plenty of time on the soybeans to come back and fix a possible mistake. If you really want to be aggressive, I would encourage you to treat your soybeans through us and then plant those in the ground maybe first. Okay, you just have some good assurances there from using our products and using Asgrow soybeans, and I think the company will stand behind what they're doing there with that replant policy. So guys, hopefully there's some conversation, some tips there to give you something to think about as we get going here. Again, my name's John Tarks with Midline and Minden. My phone number is 402-672-6951. If we're not currently working with you, we'd sure love to be. It's Friday morning, April 20th. This has been your Friday First Look video for the 20th. Thanks so much.